Dr. Lecter, my name is Clarice Starling. May I speak with you?
I'm offering you a psychological profile of Buffalo Bill. Quid pro quo. I tell you things, you tell me things. Not about this case, though. About yourself. Quid pro quo. Yes or no? Yes or no, Clarice? Poor little Catherine is waiting.
You heard it up top. Spooky season continues with another episode and a very special one at that. What we recommend you listen to this one with a nice Chianti and some fava beans. Because that's right, we're talking about Hannibal the Cannibal himself and the silence of the lambs. Here on Normies Like Us with your hosts, Buffalo Brooksy.
Michael Lecter?
Damn.
Sorry.
I was going to be Dr. Jacob Lecter. Hello, normies.
I guess it could be
Quid pro quo.
Mike Reese if we want to do that then.
I'll
Yes
be
or no.
Jacob Gum.
Fair enough. And no, all the other people's names I don't know. Like the other FBI randos. But
Oh, Jack Crawford.
Dr. Mike Chilton, Dr. Mike Crawford, head of the FBI.
Jack Crawford.
I'll just be a Death
great,
Mike's
yeah.
moth. How's that?
Sure. Oh,
Yeah.
there we go. That's even scarier.
Crazy.
But Jacob,
I've
of
transformed.
course, Dr. Hannibal Jacob here, who just did that incredible monologue. I'm shocked you could do it with that muzzle over your face the entire time and enunciate that well.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was pretty difficult, but when you're just locked in a cell all day with nothing else to do.
Those beautiful paintings behind you, too. All from memory, you said.
Yeah,
I believe when you don't have a window, memory's all you have, right?
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right, Clarice.
And memories are all we have, and some great accents. And what I just know is going to be an episode full of some incredible voice performances, because we're going to do some incredible characters featured in maybe the most lauded horror film of all time. Right? We're in the spooky season. We do our horror episodes here. Came up to my choice. You guys got to do yours, and then we took a little break, and of course covered our boy Mikey Myers's demise. And now we are back with Silence of the Lambs, something I'm very excited to talk about. I always get a little nervous when we do super good movies on this podcast. I know we always kind of do like franchises and stuff that a lot of people see, but when we do films that it's like everybody has had an opinion on this film, it is kind of course, hard to mine more. But I couldn't be more excited to hear you guys talk about this film and just to give your histories real quick of where are you with Thomas Harris's Hannibal the Cannibal Lecter character? Not even have you guys seen this movie in the past yet. We'll talk about Silence of the Lambs here in a bit, but how familiar were you guys with this character?
Well, for me, you know, I've seen this movie before. One of my favorites, and but for this time, I actually watched almost every Hannibal appearance in a movie. I watched Manhunter, Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal, and Red Dragon. Did not watch Hannibal Rising, the prequel movie. I just didn't have time to get to it, but you know, I've been watching a lot of Hannibal the last couple days.
Had you seen any of those before? Like again,
Yes.
like your
I've seen all of them
Okay.
except Manhunter before, so that was my first time watching Manhunter. But other than that, they're all rewatches, and yeah, I'm excited to talk.
read
About it.
any of the Thomas Harris books, anything like that?
Have not read the books, but just familiar with them through the movies, of course.
Okay, Mike, what is your taste for flesh here?
Yeah, well, shocking reveal here, but I've never seen this movie.
Oh
And,
my God!
Wow.
I had only seen maybe 10 or so episodes of the Mads Mikkelsen show. Just it was on Netflix. It kind of had some buzz.
Wow.
I'm aware of the character through pop culture osmosis.
Sure.
You know, I knew about fava beans and all that. But
Right.
yeah, excited to talk about it. But I didn't really know that much. You know, I knew about all the sequels, but just again, you said one of the most lauded horror films of all time, and I'm glad to be able to cover it for this. So I guess I'm coming from a fresh perspective.
Yeah.
But Colin, how about you? You know, it's
Well,
your
you know,
level.
we don't do a lot of thrillers on this podcast either, so I guess that's important as a subgenre of horror for our spooky season topics too.
Mhm.
You know, just history with this character. I feel like he was so ubiquitous. I feel like somehow, even in like the pantheon of like when like Todd McFarlane would get the rights to like movie horror characters and stuff for his toys, he would be like, well, I got Freddy, I got Jason. Oh, I got Hannibal Lecter, of course. Like somehow he would sneak in there, right?
Yeah, it's interesting to me because I don't think of this movie necessarily as a horror movie. I mean, I guess it is, but it's more like you said, it's a thriller, and because it's like an Oscar-winning movie and stuff, I was like, it's like a movie, but I guess it is a
Yeah.
horror movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
In a way, like The Exorcist, where it's like our parents, just like the people a little bit above us, were like, no, you don't understand. This thing changed everything. You're like, no, I'm pretty sure it's just like a really good movie.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
I'm surprised, Mike, that you've never seen it because this is
Yeah.
like one of those movies like The Godfather or something where
mhm.
obviously there's people who haven't seen The Godfather, but you kind of just assume everyone knows it through, like you said, pop culture osmosis and everything.
Yeah, I've never seen The Godfather either. I'm
I-
kidding.
neither
I've seen that.
Wow.
But yeah, it's interesting because I've claimed on Halloween Ends episode last week. Yeah, 85% of horror movies are mid, and as a genre, it's not excellent, but this is excellent. I'm going to bury my lead. Like, there's a reason it's as lauded as it is, and it's cool to talk about something that kind of transcends and is in the upper echelon of a horror thriller that does stand up against like all the other heavy hitters in cinema history. So very, very
For
cool.
sure.
Totally.
And let me just say, when I watched this when I was younger, a lot of it went over my head. And
Yes.
just this past rewatch, I caught a lot of stuff that I never really, because I probably haven't seen this movie since at least my teens. And so just a lot of stuff that I never caught before that I found very interesting in this movie.
I think, just to finish my history, the first time I saw it, I was probably like 10, Jacob, maybe at a sleepover. This was maybe a back-to-back R rental double feature night with Freddy Got Fingered, interestingly enough, to
Sure.
really
Great double
show you
feature.
like the
Both
times
classics.
of the 2000s.
Yeah.
awards
or
darlings.
the 90s.
Both Oscar winners, right?
Yeah, well, directed by geniuses.
Right.
It maybe wasn't until this viewing, and I watch this film maybe annually for like the past 10 years because I just truly think it's a masterpiece, and we'll get into the history of it and what we love about it specifically. That I kind of for the first time got like, oh, the whole deal was fake. Like, this was like my first feeling of like, oh, like Jack Crawford was like pulling a gambit that I like have never understood before. But again, we'll get into it here.
Yep.
I'm incredibly excited to get first reactions here. So, normies, let's hit it. Let's go to our padded cell here and lock you up because you are dangerous. You are Hannibal the Cannibal. We're here talking about it here. Silence of the Lambs on Normies Like Us. We're back. We're here talking The Silence of the Lambs here on Normies Like Us, an incredible film, the 1991 classic that won Best Picture, Best Screenplay, Best Director, Best Actress. And I was shocked because watching it, I'm always like, and of course, this is one of the best supporting actor performances of all time. No. Lead actor, best lead actor performance by Anthony Hopkins for
and
Hannibal
that was
Lecter.
a controversial decision at the time, I believe, because he has like I think 8 minutes of screen time in this whole movie, which is insane. So whether or not he's really a lead actor in this, I would say, I don't know. But
I think the film itself might have some commentary related to that, let's say, bias. I think it's somewhere between like 10 and it's under 20 minutes. So yeah, I saw 16, but I don't know the exact figure. But he's not. It's like an hour 40, an hour 50 or whatever, and he's only in it for less than 20. Let's say maximum. So
yeah,
I say supporting, but still, it is like Colin alluded to, like one of it's the only horror film to win Best Picture, ever. So there's that. So
is it?
Hell yeah.
I believe so.
Well, I guess we got Get
The
Out now
Exorcist
with
was nominated,
Best Screenplay.
That's right.
Exorcist nominated.
Best
I don't
Picture,
think.
I mean, is
but
what I
didn't
meant
win.
to say.
Yeah.
So,
well, before we start with Silence of the Lambs, could I just give my brief summation of all the other Hannibal movies that I watched
Oh yes,
recently?
please. Sure.
So I watched Manhunter for the first time, which was the 1986 Michael Mann directed movie before Silence of the Lambs. And of course, that has Brian Cox as Hannibal instead of Anthony Hopkins. So that's Will Graham, which is
He screams "fuck you," get me the Succession or whatever his
right.
famous line is from Succession.
That's right. Get me the Succession.
Get me the
Uh,
Succession.
it's interesting. It's a different take on Hannibal, and of course that story was that movie is based on the book Red Dragon, which was the first book in the Hannibal series, which would later be adapted again by Brett Ratner, right, for Red Dragon. So it's interesting to see because I had never seen Manhunter, so it was a different take on the whole Hannibal story. And now that Red Dragon story has been adapted 3 times because they also adapted it in the TV show.
Yes.
But that movie's really good too, so I would definitely recommend it. I mean, it's low budget, it's early Michael Mann, right? So it doesn't have a huge budget, but super 80s like style. Like the colors are amazing. The score is like one of the best scores ever.
Tangerine Dream, baby.
Yeah, it's just pure 80s, synth and everything. Like it's amazing. I really liked it. And then of course I watched Silence of the Lambs. Then I watched Hannibal, the sequel, directed by Ridley Scott. Not so good. Jodie Foster didn't come back, so they had Julianne Moore playing Clarice. Not great. And then Red Dragon, like I mentioned, directed by Brett Ratner. The second adaptation of that
Your
story.
hero you were telling us off podcast? Is that
Yeah,
right?
well, let's see. Michael Mann, Jonathan Demme, Ridley Scott, Brett Ratner.
What's another great director? Yeah.
All equal
X-Men
filmmakers,
3
right?
fame. Yeah.
But so yeah, I thought, really
you have
interesting to
not
watch all those
seen
movies.
the strange
Rising?
prequel movie, The Rising.
No, I wanted to watch that last, but I didn't get to it. And I might watch it tonight actually, but and I might watch the show after this now that I'm in the Hannibal zone.
Well, I recommend. Mike had mentioned that he had seen like 10 of those before, and then texted us off pod. I was like, oh, that's right. Yes, that there was that show. I have seen before the 2 episodes that they do of the Red Dragon story because Mike, the guy who plays Dollahide, the Ray
Thorin.
Fiennes killer, it's
Right.
our fucking boy Thorin Oakenshield.
Richard
Oh,
Armitage.
yeah.
Jacob, what if the book wasn't called Red Dragon? What if it was called Smaug the Dragon? Think about it.
He is a red dragon, to be fair,
Oh, is he?
Smaug is
There's
red.
like a gold dragon.
Yeah, no,
Smaug
he's
red?
red. Yeah,
I've
he's
already
red.
forgotten what color
They
he is.
cover him in gold, Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. Melted
Sure,
gold.
sure.
Rat dragon is what you call it because of Brett Ratner, but anyway.
Yeah, well, watching Red Dragon again, which I had
Michael
seen before
Manhunter.
too. Right. I had never
Michael
seen Manhunter,
Manna.
but I had seen Red Dragon, and then when I watched Red Dragon again, I was like, wait, this is the same story as Manhunter, and it's not as good to me, anyways.
Yeah.
It's fine. I mean, it has Anthony Hopkins in it. Edward Norton as Will Graham. Not bad, but obviously the best movie to me of all of them obviously is Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
This is the big one to talk about. It's the one we chose. I fall into the same trap, Jacob, every time when I watch one of these that I will continue in the Hannibal verse as you has, where I'm like, who cares? Rush Hour is good. I'll watch Red Dragon, and then you watch it and like Edward Norton is so desperate to be on the same level as Anthony Hopkins that it's just like this movie fucking sucks.
Yeah, and I mean Ray Fiennes is like okay as Francis Dollarhide, but it can't compare to
Tom
to
Noonan.
Manhunter.
Yeah, Tom Noonan. It's just another level. Manhunter, it's another thing. So, but let's talk about that now to include our history to build up to Silence of the Lambs. So, Manhunter happens, Jacob. That is a Dino De Laurentiis movie. We have talked about so many Dino De Laurentiis movies on this podcast because we are children of the 80s and 90s where this like dirty Italian asshole would just like buy up things, make them, sell them off.
Yeah.
I love it. We love it.
Yep.
And Thomas Harris novels were popular beach reads. He was sort of this pulp writer who was a recluse, who would not give interviews and just release these crazy stories that, again, Mike, back to our Texas Chainsaw, were inspired by Ed Gein and Dahmer and all these kind of, popular serial killers. And he's like, oh, of course, like the criminal profiling is something that has not been really put forth into media yet. Mindhunter, the popular Netflix series, is based on a real book called Mindhunter by the guy who's in that show,
Yeah.
right?
Who
Who
basically
makes this series.
created the idea of serial, like there wasn't a
Yes.
word for serial
Criminal
killers before
profiling
this. Yeah.
for
Mhm.
people to go, wait a minute, this keeps happening. Like this, like
Right.
Pattern killers. Yeah.
there, but even just like it's interesting that there are more than just these one-off kills, that human beings kill each others in ways that aren't just accidents, that even if they are in different ways, it's like, why is there something wrong in our brains that makes us just go crazy? And
I
what
believe
does
so.
that
Yeah.
look like?
Mhm.
And they
Right.
started to interview these people, the ones that they could catch that were alive, which was very important, right? And figured out patterns. And Jodie Foster talks about them in this movie that we're eventually going to get to. I'm going to give this
Mhm.
very long-winded speech leading up to how we get the movie that we get. But they invent criminal profiling, which is like killing in the same demographic, age group, that sort of stuff. And it becomes a science. I mean, it's one of these
Yeah.
things where it's like, well,
Forensics.
okay, we'll start solving crimes that way. And everybody's like, oh my God, like that's like wild. And so
Right.
Hollywood catches wind and is kind of like, yo, that's a great idea. So a lot of pulp stuff starts popping up, like Manhunter, which, Jacob, in my list of Hannibal the Cannibal movies, I have number 1 Manhunter, number 2 Silence of the Lambs. I
Mm.
like Michael Mann more
Right.
as a director, but Silence of the Lambs is a perfect movie. Manhunter is this like dirty, gritty, one of a kind, like pizza that you eat and you throw up afterwards, and you're like, I gotta have that pizza again. Like it's so, and that's why that's
Yeah.
number 1, right?
Yeah. Well, they're very different movies. I think the way they're shot, the
Yes.
way, everything about them, they're very different, but they're
Yes.
both excellent, I think. And those are, by far the best Hannibal movies.
Hmm.
Dino De Laurentiis had released a movie prior to the making of Manhunter called something Dragon, and it was a martial arts movie and it bombed. And he was like,
Mhm.
Dragon movies don't
Oh,
work.
that makes a
So
lot of
we're
sense.
going to call this Manhunter.
Manhunter.
And he was like, okay.
That
And they
makes sense.
release it and it kind of bombs. It's now a very well-loved movie, but it kind of does nothing. Thomas Harris, his novel rights go into limbo, and they just kind of get away, but Dino De Laurentiis sort of holds on to them, and he ends up brokering a deal with Gene Hackman, who purchases the rights to make Silence of the Lambs. He wants to star in and direct it. Meanwhile, a young woman in Hollywood, Jodie Foster, who is a very famous young star who grew up and was a little girl who did Coppertone ads before becoming a young girl celebrity, teen beat stuff, before shaking free of that by doing Martin Scorsese's Taxi Driver, and everybody being like, this is a real deal serious actress, right? In a
Right.
modern context, it's something like 11, right? Who's probably trying to do something similar now, right?
Right.
She sets her eye out and says, Jesus Christ, I want to make and direct a movie. I'm a young woman. Who cares? I want to direct a movie. I want to buy the rights to Silence of the Lambs. And she begs Gene Hackman for it because he's never going to do anything with it. And he basically says, I'm not going to sell it to you because a woman couldn't make this movie. And he
Wow.
sells it to Orion
Jeez.
Pictures. And Orion Pictures gets the stake, but still has Dino De Laurentiis on as a producer, right? They have a deal with Jonathan Demme. Jacob, you probably know Jonathan Demme more than I do because you're a hip, cool guy who knows music stuff. Like he
Sure.
was just like a cool guy, right, for music and shit.
Yeah, he made one of the greatest live band, I guess, concert movies ever made, which is Stop Making Sense, The Talking Heads. Yeah, he's made a lot of different kind of movies, kind of varied director for sure.
He does that, revolutionizes the music world, basically makes music videos and concert films what they are today, and then
Right.
goes, I'll just start making comedies. So he makes like low budget Roger Corman films before getting a deal with Orion Pictures, and he makes what's it called? Drive Me Crazy or Crazy Drive? I can't remember what it's called, with Melanie Griffith and Jeff Daniels, and Married to the Mob, which gets an Oscar performance nomination, right, for oh goddamn, what is her goddamn name? Catwoman. Who's Catwoman?
Michelle
and Ant-Man and the
Pfeiffer?
Wasp.
Yes,
Michelle
yes.
Pfeiffer. Thank you. Right. So she's up for Best Actress.
Right.
And he has a third picture deal. And Orion has the rights to Silence of the Lambs. And he's like, oh, you know what? I would love to not make a comedy. I will make this, serious movie, and it's great. Jodie Foster catches wind of this and is like, can I have a meeting with you? He's like, oh, absolutely. She sits down and goes, you have to listen to me. All I want to do is make this movie. You're going to direct that. I understand it. But you have to listen to me, what this movie is about. This is not a movie about a serial killer. This is not a movie about a police procedural. It's not a thriller. It's not a drama. It's not all these things. This is a movie about what it's like to be a woman in the workplace. This is what it's like for a woman to face
Totally.
misogyny. It is
Mhm.
what it's like to have to smile every day and work harder than your male colleagues, to put on a face through scary times, be tough, and stay true to yourself. And Jonathan Demme's response is, well, it is now. Like, he's like, oh. And he is immediately sold to her because his greatest strength as a director is his empathy. He's a guy who, to jump forward to the future, the fallout of this film, because there is a quote unquote transgender character in this movie, although there's not, or there's kind of a conflicting report of that.
Right.
Right.
The gay community was so kind of hurt by this film, and he is such an empathetic man that he got wind of that, truly cried, like was so hurt and wounded, and said, I can do better. I will devote my blank check, my next movie, the cachet I have by winning Best Director, Best Film,
Mhm.
to make Philadelphia, which is the film he makes after this, which
Right.
is the first film that acknowledges gay people and AIDS and like all that stuff. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
all that to say, coming into this, you have all this, and you need to fill in the last piece. And in Hollywood, there is this guy who stars in B movies named Tony Hopkins.
Mhm.
He's a Welsh actor, but he speaks with an American accent in all of his films, and he does B horror stuff like Magic, which is about a talking puppet who slasher kills people, if you guys haven't seen it.
No.
And he's old. I mean, he's in his 40s, and he starts to kind of get recognition when he's doing like proper dramas, and he's done stage stuff, and he gets a shot in this, basically, right?
Hmm.
And I mean, it just, again, to talk about the future, this guy will get to be Zorro and have like an action movie career because he becomes a bankable movie star in his 40s by 8 minutes of screen time, as Jacob said. So
Right.
all that to set up the movie that we want to talk about, which again is the most quote unquote lauded horror movie of all time, a suspense thriller called The Silence of the Lambs.
Yes.
I just want to know, Mike, first reactions. What did you think, man?
I love this movie. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
And it's all the things you said it is. It's not really about a serial killer. It's about all that stuff that Jodie Foster's bringing up. And I think
Right.
that's it lands it. Like it's pretty great. And like it is horror. Like there's moments that you're scared and stuff, but it's not like what we've been going through with Halloween or Texas Chainsaw. There's not really hardly any sequences of gore or anything like
No.
that. It's more psychological, and it's really effective when it's doing that stuff. So I'm impressed with this thing like crazy. It's shot incredibly all around, just like 10 out of 10. I love
Very
this movie.
suspenseful.
Mhm.
A woman rolls under a garage door, and that's about the moment where you're like, ooh, like the most,
Right.
right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
you see the head in the jar. Yeah, and I would say, there's not really gore in this. You know, the sequel
little bit.
Hannibal would lean more into the gore, which
Yeah.
For the better or for worse. But what
There's
I
an
found
action
interesting,
sequence, yeah.
yeah. But
Yeah.
Colin, what you were talking about with Jodie Foster, that's what really struck me on this rewatch is the amount of shit that she has to put up with from being a woman in a high profile job, competent at her job, just trying to do her job, and like, she gets hit on by Dr. Chilton, the head of the prison and everything, and it's just like, man, and this was in the 90s, and I'm sure things are a little better now, but it's just like crazy how, and when I was younger, this kind of flew over my head and I didn't kind of realize that subtext to it, but it really struck me this time watching it.
Yeah.
Dr. Chilton flirts with her, obviously.
Some of the
He
other bug
says the
guys do
comment-
too. But go ahead.
He says the
Right.
comment, you're Hannibal's taste. Just, like in more ways than one, or whatever cheeky pun he gives. Obviously, that is Scott Glenn's, Jack Crawford's FBI head's gambit. I'll send a
Mm.
beautiful woman. Maybe she can get more information as well.
Mhm.
But the fact of the matter is, Jacob, the comment that Dr. Chilton gives when he turns down her offer to come with him to the interview of, well, you could have told me and saved the time. And she has to
Right.
say, but I would have
Just have to
missed
be
out on your
polite,
company. A
smile and
woman has
nod.
to be polite, Jacob.
Yeah.
A woman has to at all times, to a man who could kill her at any moment, any man, a woman has to know in every circumstance can kill you at any moment. We never have to be polite to anybody. I never in my life have to acknowledge to a guy who's being a jerk to me any kindness back. I can kind of just treat him that way.
Yeah, it's something you don't think about as a man because you don't have that perspective. And it is
Right.
interesting that Jonathan Demme, like you said, such an empathetic filmmaker, he was able to make this, this feminist film as a man. But I'm sure, Jodie Foster had a lot of input on her character and everything. But
Mm-hmm.
man, it's a good
Yeah,
movie.
it's great.
Yeah.
And like Jacob said, we're all a little bit out of pocket, because we haven't experienced this one-to-one, but anecdotal stories and friends' experiences, right? Even in the modern world, where it's not quite even equal now, and in the '90s, it's even probably more. And the whole film is like about a power dynamic between men and women. Like even Buffalo Bill and his victims, there's a
Yes.
power dynamic there, and then her and the FBI chief, and even Hannibal. It's about this kind of balance, kind of
Right.
between the two and where their standing is, right?
And with Buffalo Bill, of course, you have the whole transgender discourse, and a lot of smarter people than me have written about this from a feminist lens and from an LGBT lens that
Mm-hmm.
I could never really do justice. But is it problematic today? Maybe, but also they do try to explain like, oh, he's not really transgender. He's trying to be, but it's obviously this was the early '90s, very different time for
Well,
transgender
early 90s,
perspective.
but using language and at least being more thoughtful than I would consider Ryan Murphy being today with the Jeffrey Dahmer stuff. So it's just
yeah.
interesting that discourse persists, Jacob.
I think where some of that comes to is it's one of the first times like a mass release movie that's super popular and Oscar buzz. Most people are exposed to kind of the idea of a transsexual person even existing, but it's a kind of
Right.
set up as a villain. It's not like it's we've done a lot of stuff I think in society to kind of advance everybody's education, acceptance of people, and that's great. But for the first kind of pop culture drop to be a villain, even though the line is he's just always transforming and this is what he's on now, like he's not really a transsexual.
And they even
Hannibal
have that
says,
line
so.
they have that line where they're like, oh, well, transsexuals are very passive, and it's like, well,
Based on
I
our
don't know if
profiling, or
that's kind of
that's still reductive. Yeah.
it's reductive, but they were trying. It was the early '90s, very different time, and I feel like they
Yes.
were trying to a certain degree. Whether or not it worked or not, I don't know.
Yeah, general audience, you can't control the way the message is received, but I don't think the film is putting out that message of, trans people being dangerous or whatever. And
No.
I think that's more the
Right.
general audience reading into it. And I guess we leave it at that, unless you have anything to add to it. But, sign of the times.
Yeah, no, again, I'm just kind of proud that it has any kind of discourse. And again, that Jonathan Demme had so much empathy that regardless of how it was received, he had a comment beyond it with his next film.
Yeah.
But I say, kind of let's go beat for beat into this, guys. So starts off with a young FBI trainee. That always kind of gets me right away, that she is not a member and associate of the FBI yet. She is still at school, right? And she is running the course in the greens. I've seen this in Riverdale now, when Betty goes to FBI school and she's a young woman on a case, it starts with her jogging, with her friend on a cold morning.
Oh, sure.
What do you think? 40 other films from this point? Can I ask you
Hmm.
guys, was this any of your parents' favorite films?
I don't think so. I mean, I wasn't even allowed to watch this in front of my parents, when I was younger, and probably rightfully so. It's not really a good movie for kids, but
Mm-mm.
I don't think I probably watched this without their knowledge when I was younger, but didn't really understand it until I was a teenager, right?
I would estimate. I'd probably have to ask my mother because she's really into the true crime genre. I'm sure she was someone, and it's not gory. She doesn't like gory stuff, but this has that psychological bent. I need to have that conversation after, which I will after this podcast, and report back on a what yet. But it is like just one of the most iconic movie posters of all time. Like I just remember seeing the poster, and it's never left me, even though I
No.
didn't see it until now. It just, but yeah, I think
And the
that
title
older
makes no
generation.
sense, and it's got a butterfly on the cover, and you're like, "What is
Yeah,
this?"
what is
But what I
this?
A
found,
lot of
and
symbolism.
I hope this isn't lost in the new generation because I don't hear young women say it's their favorite now. But I have found
Hmm.
this is a mom favorite movie. This was one
Mhm.
of my mom's favorite movies, uh, and she wanted to be in the FBI when she was young. She
Right.
saw this and thought it was such a cool
Oh wow.
workforce, positive movie and stuff. And I think I supposedly from the FBI's involvement with this film and how much they put into and how much they loan production and like the
Hmm.
procedures and all that stuff and oh we'll show how you do it officially. I think they kind of saw this as their top gun. Like this was a huge
Hey,
recruiting tool.
that
Mm.
makes sense. Yeah.
It's yeah, my mom does not like scary movies at all, so I don't know if she ever watched this, but I don't know if this movie today doesn't really get enough credit for being such a feminist movie. And you think about like Ripley and Alien, like as such a
Yeah,
strong female character,
Hmm.
like Clarice Starling, great character,
Man.
she's the
not
best.
talked about enough these days, right?
Yeah, this movie's.
No.
Yeah, I was really pleased with kind of how progressive it was, for '91, and like it holds up. I think, with kind of the themes that it's dealing with, and it's just incredible. It's incredible, and I'm happy that it came out and had kind of the accolades that it earned because it absolutely deserves them. And I think they
Hell
even
yeah.
filmed at the FBI thing, like you said. This could have, you know, ramped up the recruiting. Same thing.
Yeah. And
Top Gun.
a note on the whole FBI thing too. So Scott Glenn, the guy that plays Jack Crawford,
Best.
he I guess was in contact with some real like people who do this job for real, right, in the FBI, and
Mm-hmm.
they're kind of telling him about the job stuff. They gave him this tape, which is about two serial killers in California, like in the 70s, who would like kidnap women and like torture and rape them, and they did audio
Jesus.
recordings of it all, and they gave him the audio recording. He listened to it, and he said basically due to that, like he still has like nightmares about it. Like he didn't reprise his role in the Ridley Scott Hannibal movie because he was just like, I can't get back into that character. Like it messed him up basically for life just listening to that tape. And he's like, I can never do this job for real. I don't know how people do it, but man, pretty dark stuff, right?
Yeah, presenting the job of criminal profiler and like serial killer profiler, like, yeah, how do you even one do that? And then to have this juxtaposition where Jodie Foster has to try to fit in the boys' club, but the only person who kind of accepts her as she is a serial killer and cannibal. Like the only person who has a genuine connection with her beyond like, oh, women can't do this job is Hannibal, and it's wild.
So when he
Right.
so when he later says to the one sort of this film, I guess would pass the Bechdel test because she talks to that person later about traveling in the FBI. That waitress is like,
Mhm.
is that a cool job? But earlier she's talking to her kind of one other female cohort in the FBI, right?
Mhm.
Right.
And later says to her like, no, don't worry, Hannibal won't come after me. I don't know how to explain it, but he would find that to be rude.
Yeah,
Well, that's the
yeah.
thing is that he
It's
hates
just
rude
like the
people, and he prefers
greatest.
to
Yeah.
eat rude people over
Yeah.
non-rude people if he can.
Mhm.
It's
So I appreciate that
good.
about him.
But
Yeah,
what
that's
a
what's so
weird.
He's very kind. Yeah.
Yeah, but for her to feel so isolated in the
The
world she
kinship, yeah.
inhabits, that the only place of estranged comfort is Hannibal. What an interesting setup, and the relationship between the two drives this movie. Like, and
Yes.
they both
Yeah.
crush it. They both crush, for sure.
And not to talk about Manhunter and these other movies again too much, but those in the show, the FBI character is generally the character of Will Graham, who is
Right.
obviously a man. They kind of have the similar dynamic, but his whole thing is that he has like the mind of a serial killer. Like he can see things from their perspective and understand why they do the things they do. Um, yeah, but like being doing this job, like it's not it's not for everyone, right?
No.
No, I certainly wouldn't have the
And
stomach for it.
the point of the film will be how we discover who Clarice Starling is as a person and sort of what drives her to this job. But at first, we see her, of course,
Mhm.
on this training course. Starling, she's called in to meet with the director of the FBI. We see her go in an elevator. Again, Mike, we're getting these shots of she's this tall. Men are, out of frame tall surrounding her. They are huge. She is not in the same training outfit as them. She is in her sweats. you know, a woman is different. Like, it is getting hammered to us, right? She heads into Jack Crawford's office. Behind him is the movie, right? We see on the pinup board Buffalo Bill, what he's about, what he does, his kill style, his victims. They don't spell it out for us yet. They say the name Buffalo Bill. We don't even know what that refers to yet, that moniker, right? That we'll learn later. The press sort of gave him in a Buffalo Bill skinning homage, correct?
Yeah.
But
it's all set dressing.
Jack Crawford,
like it's there. Right. If you're perceptive,
and again,
you can get a lot more
Jonathan
information.
Demme is just a killer director who's like, we're just going to tell the story with every frame, right? And we get this little kickoff of Jack Crawford is putting together just like, you're a trainee. I have a special assignment for you. I've kind of lectured for you before, so we're aware of each other. She argues. He gave her an A minus, actually. Oh, okay, whatever. Ha ha ha. She's a good person. They argued about ethics, right? That seems to be why he likes her. You're interesting. I want you to do a criminal profile. If you can get Dr. Lecter, it just so happens, serial killer and psychologist, to put together a profile on a serial killer we're looking for, and they drop the name here, Wild Bill.
Buffalo Bill.
Buffalo Bill. Then that basically you're guaranteed to graduate, right? Okay, great, she'll do it. And it sets up our whole thing where she now goes to the psychiatry place. She meets Dr. Chilton. We get the whole setup with Barney the orderly of how dangerous these psychopaths are. Walk down. Boom. We meet the scariest original character of the 1990s, Dr. Hannibal Lecter. I mean, what do we say, guys?
Well, I think what's so interesting about him is that, like you mentioned, obviously is inspired by real life serial killers like Dahmer and these sorts of people, but the characterization of being this sophisticated intellectual psychiatrist who also kills and eats people, like that's such an interesting thing. And
that he's Sherlock Holmes, that he has this like
he's like
funny
a super
name.
genius.
It's like you truly have to recognize the boldness, I guess, of what Thomas Harris is creating, right?
Yeah, he has a code of ethics. As weird as like he is a serial murderer and cannibal, but he has like ethics and empathy. Weirdly, he hates rudeness a lot. And it's just he's fascinating. And his performance, I think he mentioned he kind of based it off of HAL 9000 from 2001. Like this cold delivery of very
emotionless
spooky lines.
Of course.
Yeah, so incredible. And he tried not to blink whenever they were doing takes. So it's like it's very effective.
Yeah, and again, he plays it differently than Brian Cox did in Manhunter, where he was very much more animalistic, whereas he's so reserved and he's just very still and always in control, it seems like, and always wants to be in control.
They talk about even when he attacked one of the orderlies because they didn't follow the protocols, like his heartbeat never went above 84. So even when he's doing this crazy stuff, he doesn't get excited about it. It's all very procedural to him, right? And what a fascinating character.
Mike, I recognized on this viewing when they take the pulse rate of the guard's body later on the gurney and they say pulse 84 and he stands up and takes his thing off. I was like, God damn it. He is just cold as ice.
That payoff. Yeah. Spoilers for a movie if you haven't seen in 30 years like me.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Sure.
But
of course.
yeah. Incredible. I didn't even catch that on this viewing, but yeah, what a nice detail. So
now, for this episode, did you guys eat someone?
I couldn't get around to
it. Ray Liotta's brain, of course.
Oh, that's big spoilers.
Wow.
That's maybe the worst moment in movie history, Jacob. I can't even think about that.
Yeah.
Would you ever? I guess in one of those, like plane crash scenarios. Do you guys think
Donner
you could
party?
Ever eat a person?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's kill or be killed, who knows what,
I don't know.
Not saying
nuclear
I would,
cannibals, you're waiting for the fallout, Jacob?
Well, if it's like a Walking Dead type scenario, remember in Walking Dead, there's that whole community of people that would just kill and eat people. It's like
there's
probably easier ways to get food than that.
There's got to be one cow out there.
Right. Also, berries exist.
Yeah.
Right. Go vegetarian.
A potato, yeah.
Yeah, I do everything in my power to avoid it generally. But Hannibal, though,
Right.
he's
Yeah, I
into
just
it.
don't know that I ever could. He really just seems to love it.
Yeah. Most serial killers keep a memento or a keepsake of their victims. Not him. No,
But
you
I
ate
didn't.
yours.
You ate
That's
yours.
right.
Ah, that's correct.
Ah, yes. How are
So
those
Yeah.
drawings? Like, yeah.
again, Demme comes from a comedy background. Outside of the music, Something Wild. I just remembered the name of the other film.
Mhm.
He's directed these, and I believe Ray Liotta, I think, was up for an Academy Award for that film. So truly, he's doing these comedy banger film performances back to back to back. And I think there's part of him that cannot help but craft his Lecter as so darkly comic, like dark
Yeah.
chocolate comic. Like he is rich in dark comedy in the way that I would almost say Mary Harron's American Psycho. People will be like, Colin, how can you laugh at that movie? I'm like, that is a comedy. That's the point of that movie. It's a dark, dark, dark comedy.
Right. I think with Hannibal, he loves to be kind of the center of attention. He loves to kind of captivate his audience, and he's a quick wit, so he's just always, dropping those classic lines.
Incredibly sharp.
Yeah, and I mean, the script is great, and the interactions with Jodie Foster and him,
Yes.
probably the best parts of the movie, right? Just like their dynamic.
Oh,
Right,
and
Jacob,
let's
do the
talk
monologue again.
Yeah, right. No, the cinematographer Tak Fujimoto, right? He's done a lot of classics, Sixth Sense, Signs, Silence of the Lambs, obviously. But the way this is
amazing.
shot, like you have scenes. The most exciting scenes in this movie to me is just two people talking, which a lesser cinematographer director would just do reverse shot. But the scenes are so dynamic with the blocking and the camera moving and the framing getting tighter and tighter and tighter, and they're looking straight down the barrel of the camera. The actors are looking into the lens, cutting back and forth.
The close-ups. Yeah.
And you're in their perspective, and it is wild. And you get tighter and tighter and tighter as the tension builds, and it's incredible the way they shoot scenes of two people talking and the performances to carry that energy.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Do you think, again, that's the feminism, claustrophobia, just sort of what it's like to be stared, even when someone friendly like Barney the Orderly, hi, how you doing? I'm Barney. His first line's totally fine and, not
100%.
threatening at all. You are still, as a little woman from North
West
Dakota,
Virginia.
West Virginia,
Undeniably, or whatever, yeah.
threatened by anything, right? So is that this imposing, the claustrophobia?
It's at the empathy to put us in the shoes, because even the victim of Buffalo Bills, it's all shot from her, down and looking up, right? Like you are, and then he's always up looking down. So I
How
think
did
it's
one of us not
intentional.
say Precious as our nickname? By the way?
Precious. Man.
Come here, you stupid dog.
I hate when they're walking out, and I don't know why that lady is.
My dog.
I don't know why she's keeping Precious with her. I'm like, I do not want this dog taken away
Mike,
from me.
that is the moment where I'm like, this is a perfect movie, because again, Jonathan Demme knows this woman is not a perfect victim. Basically, here's the thing.
She yells at.
We're jumping ahead. We'll come back.
Well, she does.
Sorry.
That's incredible. Two mistakes are made in this movie by the sort of nebulous nature of the script. Is that like a serial killing is occurring, and the head of the FBI goes, God damn it, we need to stop this serial killer. I'll send my trainee to go interview this guy who's good with serial killers. And it just so happens that guy knows the serial killer. And the rest of the movie is just him going like, I'm not going to tell you the name, and kind of just figuring out the pieces, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then the other huge mistake is our serial killer, who just kidnaps random people that he does profile, but not enough to know who they are, steals a senator's daughter and just has
That's
the
when things
world
get serious.
turned against him. Yes.
Mhm.
It's like, you blew it.
Yep.
And that kind of shows a sort of
Flew
a
too close to
classism
the
angle
sun.
too, where it's like,
Yes.
you can abduct all the working class people you want, but
it's not a problem until it becomes a politician's problem. Jacob, we are literally seeing in real time in Los Angeles, there is a serial killer killing black women that has gone unknown until one of them escaped, and
that's the thing
complained
with
to the police.
Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yes,
they didn't take him seriously for a long time because he was killing black people.
Yeah, nuts. So we're getting stuff in 91 that's saying, hey, you know what? There's maybe a difference in the way things are being policed
Right.
Yes.
This is more class based, but yeah, you know what I mean. Wild.
Yeah, and Hannibal having a former patient that was a victim of Buffalo Bill. I'd
turns
never
out.
understood that when I was younger either. I was like, wait,
Yeah.
how does he know that his head is in this jar in this garage or whatever? Like that always confused me, but I understood it more this time.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, they lends itself to rewatches, but that's kind of the deal. Is he's like, look, I'll give you info. I have information that you want, and I just want you to tell me details about your life, and that's his quid pro quo, you know.
Yes.
Right.
So
yes.
he
And
slowly in
it
every
starts this
visit
handoff.
drip feeds information. Yeah.
Right. So we see Clarice's backstory. She grew up poor, West Virginia, like he says in the monologue.
Mm-hmm.
Her dad was a local cop who was killed in a attempted robbery or something, and she was orphaned as a young child, right?
Yep.
Yes, not a coal miner. My mom died when I was very young. My father was my whole world. Like you said, Jacob, he stopped the burglary. Did he die immediately? No, he was strong.
He was strong.
A whole month. Just and let's talk about Jodie for a minute, right?
Mm-hmm.
She wins the Academy Award for this. She's not someone who is, I guess, a huge figure for me. She's someone now who I think has a lot built around her because she's Republican and friends with Mel Gibson and Robert Downey Jr. But that
Right.
association seems to be more through this sort of like Three Musketeers rehab that she has sort of never been out and about of, like, is that some sort of substance abuse or alcoholism that she was facing, but she seems to have on wrap.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just remember that Lifetime Achievement Oscar, which is wild since she has won one already. And, I thought it was always a great actress, where she gave the speech and basically said, and a lot of people ask me if I'm gay. Well, here's my answer. I live with a woman. So am I? And everybody was like, well, are you? And she's like, I don't know. Am I? And so basically still wouldn't say it. And it was like,
right.
Well, this is crazy.
I didn't know she was Republican. I know she was friends with
Yes.
Mel Gibson and everything. Like
Yeah.
She made that movie, The Beaver, with him.
Your favorite movie.
Of course. But I thought that was more like, she's just defending her canceled friends and so on. But I didn't know she was a Republican. That's very interesting to me, I guess.
She directs now, right? She made that Money
Right.
Monster, I guess was her last movie with Clooney and Roberts. I don't know. She's someone, I'm glad she never came back to this because she knocks this out of the park, and I don't think she would have needed the desperation to come back to Clarice Starling, right?
I wish she did come back in Hannibal. Not that I don't like Julianne Moore at all, but I mean that movie's not very good.
Savable, dude. Yeah,
no, but yeah, and they do kind of ruin the character of Clarice in that movie. Like, yeah, it's not a very good movie.
I consider
the book
this
goes that way. I should say.
Bummer. Yeah, but I consider just this in a vacuum one of the great all-time performances from both leads, even though Anthony Hopkins is the lead. Yeah, in his 8 minutes, he's carrying 1 million pounds on his back. But
you
so
feel
is
his absence when he's not in it, Mike, right?
Yeah, but then the scenes where she's solo, exploring Buffalo Bill's house or doing her own kind of, investigative stuff, she's still really, really good in those scenes because she has to keep her composure with this overwhelming,
right, and
male energy that she feels unwelcome, all that shit.
Yes.
Yeah, and going back to small town West Virginia, or I can't remember what state they're in, but
they go to Ohio at one point.
Yeah,
and Chicago.
Well, that's the fake out, right? When they're all in Ohio, and it turns out he's in Chicago or something. And
I think it's a flip. She's in Ohio, but either way.
Oh,
yes,
okay,
that's Chicago. And then, yes.
But just her returning, and she's kind of seeing flashbacks to her childhood, and then thinking about it, like, she can empathize with these victims more because she was that person. She was, a small town girl growing up in a small town and wanting to get out, right? And
we haven't discussed what the Silence of the Lambs is.
Well, we get the first flashback that I think sets up the story for her of little girl running to the sheriff dad saying, "Did you stop any bad guys today?" And I think her saying that is literally her creed of her life of, I will stop bad guys.
And the father's response is, no, they all got away, unfortunately, today.
Yeah, sorry, sweetie, blah, blah, blah. But we get her real story, Mike, which is the death of the father, as we said, in the burglary. Where did you go? I went to a sister's brother and wife. They took care of me.
Did he?
Did they fillet
Have
you?
cows.
No, he was a good man.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
were farmers. Yeah. Well, they have sheep. Yeah, horses. They're nice. Well, what was it? Well, one night I woke up. I heard screams. I heard children's screams, and I ran out. Why did you do it, Clarice? Did you run away? No, I ran to the voices. I ran to help, and I went, and it was the lambs.
The lambs. They were
The lambs,
slaughtering
and
the lambs.
they were getting ready to kill them all. And I threw the pen open, and they just stared at me. They couldn't run. They didn't know what to do. They
so
just stayed
confused.
there. And I cried, and I was scared. And I knew I had to save at least one, so I grabbed one and I ran. But I could only get so far before they found me.
He was so heavy.
Like, oh my God. So even as this child, she maybe
And then they
she's
put her
a
up in an orphanage
vegetarian
after
now
that.
even, and
Yeah.
basically was maybe even put into foster care or something,
yep.
right, Mike? And somehow
Jodie foster care.
she drives Jodie foster care.
Sorry.
She drives a piece of shit car, but other than that, we know like she double majored in college. She's basically the hottest shot, psychology / criminal law, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, she's really competent at her job, which is another thing.
She's a genius.
Yeah.
So how she would have gotten maybe she like served, like, I have no idea, right?
Yeah.
But
she's got cheap shoes and a good bag.
You got your
Right.
cheap shoes and your good bag, but you're one step away from white trash.
Man.
It's just all the best. So that's her. We're gonna get all that later.
So he posits to her,
Yeah.
the reason you're hunting down and you want to solve this crime is because you still hear the lambs crying when you sleep, and if you can save this one victim, maybe they will stop at last. The silence of the lambs, right?
So she's got kind of a complex where she needs to save people,
Savior
right?
complex,
Savior complex.
And thank God Dino De Laurentiis did not release a movie with lamb in the title, because this is a great title. And again, the imagery is so much because you're getting the death head moss.
Right.
The cover is one of the all-time terrifying covers to walk by in Blockbuster, between the old It with the Tim Curry Pennywise, which was, if so help me God, if that was next to Silence of the Lambs with the mouth with the bug coming out of it, like,
right.
There was a good chance I might go home from Blockbuster crying that night if I saw that at the right age.
Yeah.
But the title is that. I mean, if it was like guys, think about it in modern context. Now it would be called Silence of the Lambs, a Knives Out mystery. Like they put it would be called a Manhunter or a Red Dragon,
Right, a Hannibal
follow-up, or exactly
A Hannibal
Yeah.
story. Yeah.
It would just be nothing, but it's this standalone one film, The Silence of the Lambs. It's provocative. I just think that's perfect.
Yeah, and the rest of the films having to have, some of them having the Hannibal tie-in, and Red
Oh,
Dragon's
right. Yeah.
the name of the
I mean,
book.
the sequel.
Oh, from here on out, it's
Exactly. Like they just gave up on the sequel. Oh, let's call it Hannibal, I guess. But I mean, that's what the book is called. That's based on. But
Dr. Lecter.
yeah, Hannibal Rising. Yeah.
Hannibal Rising.
But what a great, it's just a great piece of work. We talked about, hey, what's the best timeline for the Halloween films? You watch the first one and you stop. With this, just watch Silence of the Lambs. I haven't seen the other ones, and I will out of curiosity, but this is just, you don't need anything else.
Yeah, watch Manhunter.
It piques
Watch
your
and then watch
curiosity.
Red
I think
Dragon
Red
just to
Dragon's
compare.
fine.
Right. But even
Yeah.
this, like, if your curiosity is piqued, you can do that. But this by itself
Yeah.
doesn't need anything around it,
Right.
Jacob, is the last shot of Red Dragon Anthony Hopkins, and you hear somebody say, Clarice Starling walking in now?
Yes,
or
literally,
something like that?
it's
Yes.
Dr. Chilton. He's like, "There's a young woman here to see you." It literally ends at the beginning of Silence
So
of the
you
Lambs.
could just do these.
You
Wow.
can watch
just
Red
go.
Dragon, then
Yeah.
Silence of the Lambs, then
Yeah.
Hannibal.
Yeah.
I would say watch Manhunter, then watch Red Dragon if you want an inferior version of Manhunter with
Yeah.
Anthony Hopkins in it, though.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think they're
Just
all
need to
worth watching once. Even Hannibal, it's not very good, but just to see
No.
the sequel and see what
Yeah.
Hannibal's up
You
to
want
after
to
this
see
movie.
Anthony Hopkins inhabit
Ham
this
it
role
up.
again, at least, you know what I
Yes.
mean? So-
Unfortunately, the script is never as good. The lines are never as good. He's hamming it up in the sequel, kind of.
Yeah,
but-
and it's all just him getting paid. And like I said, he became a movie star after this.
Right.
It's
he
such a different
became an
performance.
actor. Right.
The person who kind of didn't get anything from this film is Ted Levine, who of course plays Buffalo Bill.
And he's great.
He's
To
incredible.
shout him out real quick, the performance is just lost because these other three, including like Scott Glenn, gets top billing for some reason above the title billing, which is phenomenal. But they're just eating up so much real estate that, you know, truly, he was dating Martha Stewart at this time, young, foxy Martha Stewart. If you
Ted
look her
Levine
up
was?
at this time,
No
Ted
kidding.
Levine was, and broke up with him because she said he had gone too method and that he
Oh,
was
wow.
like gone basically.
Whoa.
Well, he's incredible in this movie, and he's always great when he shows up in things. I always like to see him. I mean, are you saying a series regular on the show Monk? That's not anything, Colin?
To the people of the 2000s at our age, to families, I would say Ted Levine is the captain on Monk. Like, that is a great career
Right.
that he just kind of had for the rest of his life,
But
right?
he's great as a character actor. Anytime he shows up
Yeah.
in anything, I always like to see him. And he disappears into this role for sure.
Oh man,
What is that Leo crazy movie with Scorsese? Is that Shutter Island?
Shutter Island? Yeah.
He has the all-time best cameo in Shutter Island because they build his character up, and then it's revealed to be Ted Levine, and he's in a cart, and he just has a one-shot monologue with Leo, one scene, and it's out, and you're just like, Ted Levine can just come in and just fucking knock it out of the park, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I wonder how much screen time Buffalo Bill has in this, because whenever he's there, he is owning it, you know, and like to see him.
Was she a great big fat lady?
Right, but
No,
when he
I
turns
remember.
on bumpkin mode versus, you know, to borrow from
and
Leatherface,
the way
Pretty
he
Lady
physically
mode.
transformed.
have any leads on the Buffalo Bill?
The cops around here don't know shit. Does the FBI know anything that I should be aware of? Yeah.
Fingerprints
Right.
or pictures
name?
or anything?
What evidence
Yeah.
do you have? Yeah.
Jacob,
he's-
would you trick a
amazing.
woman into your car by pretending to have a broken arm?
Well, that's crazy because that's based on what's that fucking guy? There's a real serial killer who would wear casts and stuff.
One
and
of the handsome ones.
Yeah, the handsome
Like,
Ted,
oh, I
what
need
was
a
it?
hand.
Ted Bundy. Ted
Bundy.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that makes
He
sense.
would literally do that and have a cast and be like, "Oh, I need
Because you
help."
appear weak, and then,
Yeah, or you have
I
crutches.
can't. Hey, I can't hurt you because obviously, you know,
Yeah,
come
yeah,
here.
yeah.
Ah!
Predatory.
Right.
Wild.
So yeah,
but I
but I
like.
mean,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, me? Thank you. Jodie Foster picks up on a thing with the girl who gets kidnapped. Her mother keeps saying her name, right? And then Jodie Foster's like, "Oh, that's smart because if she keeps saying the name, he'll feel like it's a human being and not just like a victim."
Right.
And so
When
see,
you notice,
yeah, go
Cut
ahead.
to it puts the lotion.
It
in
puts the lotion on the
basket.
skin.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then even when she's trying to like talk to him, like she's kind of trying to humanify herself, and even when she kidnaps the dog to try to, let it, escape, that's when he kind of sees her as a person because like you leave my dog alone, you leave my dog alone.
Well, even
right?
when she's
kill your
yelling at
dog,
him
mister.
to not put the lotion in the basket, he starts to get frustrated because he's having a hard time separating her humanity. Like he's just like, just do the
Right.
thing, and you see
Like-
him start to break, and just put the fucking lotion in. And it's like
Out of
incredible.
all the serial killers who could attack you, out of all the ways you could go, Buffalo Bill, guys, to be kidnapped, kept in a hole, and then starved to death. Is
So
that
your
how you
skin
guys want to
loosens.
go?
It's
about
Yeah,
also
so
size
that you know that
14.
he's gonna like use your leg to like wear later.
he wants your
Mike.
muscles to atrophy and stuff so that your skin is easier to remove. Like it's a process too. It's fucking weird.
And when Clarice goes through the house and we get to the dungeon and we see how far he is into the flesh suit, guys, and it's one side is done, basically one breast. It's
Mhm.
terrible. You
Mm.
kind of know that like he's gonna have to go through like 5 more women basically just to get like the whole other side, and then like let alone if he's gonna do like some kind of face, he's gonna fuck that up.
Yeah.
Or, like
Right.
have to like stop at his neck and just like wear like makeup and like blend it.
And she
Ugh.
was wearing makeup, but it's wild. And that's one of the most that's the gruesome bit of the movie. There's not a lot of it,
Yeah.
but when they use it, it's incredibly effective. But
Yes.
But what I think is so interesting about his character is that he's not completely evil. Like they do try to humanize him again, like Jonathan Demme
He hates
humanizes
himself. They just
everyone
keep
in this
saying,
movie.
yeah.
Yeah, he
Mhm.
hates himself. He's trying to. It's all about transformation, right? But you see, like he's not completely emotionless. Like he gets upset when he starts having to think about his victim as a person instead of an
Mhm.
object. It makes him upset.
it's like
So he
this
has some kind of
identity of
emotion.
murdering right now, he's not even pleased with.
Yeah,
It's just a means to the ends of getting the suit, but he doesn't like that part. That's why it has to be an it, right?
Right.
What a complex character, and that final kind of pursuit is incredibly tense, and they set up night vision goggles earlier, and that whole sequence is just like
Yes.
fucking
I think
one of the scariest things I've ever seen
Yeah.
maybe the first usage of the mic.
in a movie. Yeah, or yeah, one of the earliest widestream. I wouldn't know that data, but super effective. And then it's just
And the fake out. Well, this is what I want to get your opinion on, Mike.
Oh,
Of seeing
yes.
this for the first time. First of all, the Hannibal escape scene.
mhm.
Second of all, the fake out with all the SWAT team and everyone
We've got him.
entering this house, and then it turns out it's the wrong house, and Clarice
Knock,
is actually at the
knock,
right
Jodie.
house alone, and that's when you're
Mhm.
like, oh shit.
It's
So, what do you think of that?
I'll start with a twist because I have some stuff I want to mention about Hannibal escaping, but
Yeah.
I loved it. Like I remember hearing like, oh yeah, the different house, and like it's setting up, and I'm like, okay, I think I know that there's gonna be a switcheroo. But either way, like the way it played out was incredibly effective, and then you realize that she's alone. All the FBI with all their guns are somewhere else. She's a trainee, and the way she slowly, she's pretty smart and in control in that situation.
What did we learn before, Mike? What's your blind spot?
The corner.
My
The corner.
corners.
Check the corners.
How did
Foreshadowing.
you die? I didn't check them.
Mm-hmm. She learned
So you're
that.
seeing her training coming into play there, right?
Yep. She learned, and even things
She
she learned about the
snap-turning,
case. Once she notices
Shutting
the
the doors
moth
behind her.
No, I love that. Like the way she's doing the gunplay and crouches to get a better angle on the stairs. Like, very good stuff. So I think that all played out really well. And the slow tension, again, like we said, what does the FBI know? The police don't know anything.
Right. And how soon do you think she realized it? Because he introduces himself. She knows his name is Jamie Gum, but he also goes by like John Grant
Now,
sometimes.
Jacob Ebel. Now you also go by Justin Eric.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the laziest.
Mhm.
Right. So he introduced himself as like Jack Gordon or something, right? It's like,
Yeah.
JG. Do you think she's starting to put it together like
Wait a
JG?
Everything in his kitchen, every picture he has is butterflies.
Butterflies and moths.
She's like, she's literally just like looking around and nodding.
Mhm.
Another thing I appreciate about Buffalo Bill as a character is that he has like hobby stuff outside of killing people. Like he's into insects, he's into tailoring, like, he's a
Somebody
complex
loved this
guy.
little guy,
Yeah.
somebody
Yeah.
imported
Yeah.
these Asian moths and grew them because they're
He
not
had
domestic.
a boyfriend. He cut his head off, but somebody loved him.
Yep.
Yeah.
But no, the bug people, they're like, somebody loved this. Like somebody grew this bug and fed it and made sure, 'cause
Right.
they're not, domestic creatures. So I think
Bug
she,
guy's asking her out on a date, Mike.
Again, yeah, just hammering that point, like just existing as a woman in a high
Every
you're
profile job
exposed to
like
a
that.
lot of bullshit. Yes.
Yeah.
But she, like this whole thing, I think it's when she sees the death head moth that it's like 100% like, yes, because
She undoes the strap at that moment.
there's
It's
no way a
game time.
random guy. Yeah. This is it. This is the smoking gun, so to speak. And
Right.
And as a man now at 33, I'm just like, yeah, have your dungeon or whatever. You can be messy down there. But even as a serial killer, clean up your place. You have a huge house. I'm like,
Yo,
Yeah.
all that real
But he
estate you
has
gotta
like a
make
cool
filthy.
basement where he
Yes,
hangs
I
out
was
with
like,
his
this
bugs.
place is great.
Yeah.
Jacob,
Just do that
me,
and don't
naked,
murder.
at my fucking laptop as Lucy runs around me barking, like you can't see me going like, yeah.
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 Just, breeding bugs or writing scripts, whatever you do down there is cool. Just don't do the murdering part,
Playing
What's
dress
that hole
up.
for? Shh, quiet.
Yeah,
Listen
yeah.
to some bangers like
Yeah,
Goodbye
some
Horses.
Goodbye
Goodbye
horses,
Horses.
baby. Now, have you
Man.
guys ever tucked before?
Every day.
You guys ever done the tuck?
Can neither confirm nor deny anything in a public forum.
Mm.
Iconic moment of the movie, though.
So that's kind of our end, right? But let's talk about the end for our fan favorite character. Now, the escape, right?
Yes.
The deal that's been built up for Lecter is like, we're gonna give you all these nice things. Oh, that wasn't real. Like I said, I never put that together before. And then it's like, oh, okay, Dr. Chilton is negotiating instead on his behalf and a separate branch of the FBI to get actual help. They do get the description from him. Lecter does cooperate, does not give the correct name, right? Jack Crawford says that later. We still know it's James Gum, but they still get the wrong address, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
But because of that, he's going to get these perks where he goes to an island and he's allowed to be in the water for
1
30
hour.
minutes or 1 hour with
Right.
armed supervision around him and stuff. He'll go to a place with a window. Like, that's the good stuff. It sets up that he's in this hotel. He meets with the senator. We, of course, get the iconic. I had never seen that sort of mask before. And again, the orderlies have built up. If Lecter even touches you, he's gonna like try to eat parts of you. So like his mouth is his danger zone. Yes. So he has to be put away, right?
Has to be muzzled like a dog.
And we get this final interaction with Jodie, where of course she gives the Silence of the Lambs speech. But otherwise, we get his escape here. And Mike, this is like a little action scene in the middle of our thriller movie. And again, this is the gore. This is what's making it a horror movie, I guess, kind of.
Well, I want to know, did you know about this beforehand, or what was your reaction, and how soon did you realize, oh, like what's happening by the time he's like in the ambulance and stuff?
I was I did not see it coming. In hindsight, when the reveal is that he's, wearing the dude's face and stuff. But yeah, Colin.
That's Prescott.
Yep, the 84. Genius though. What a play.
Yes.
What a play. And like okay, he's going up to the 5th floor, and it's like, yeah, he's probably hiding the body up there and then coming back down and then pretending to be.
He kills the guards. Takes one of their faces.
Shot, I guess. Yeah. Because they say a bullet.
Stages a shootout just for the sound of it, right?
Yep.
Kills the other guard, takes his face, acts like he's the guard, and he's
How
dying.
does he get his
he gets
face
taken
away?
Hey, he's skilled.
He's talented. He's got a lot of experience.
Yeah,
let's say this too.
Probably, no.
He has a bobby pin, right? So that's the kickoff to get his cuffs off.
Right.
And sort of does this whole thing.
Or it's like a part of a pen, right?
Is that what
well,
it is?
He's looking at the
leaves the
senator's
pen
pen
at
like
one
a
point.
crazy person.
I was going to say
all
the
foreshadowing,
90s wanted you to believe bobby pins were like indestructible, but our age, if you ever grabbed one of your mom's, I would put it in a lock. It would snap. Even the idea of putting it in it would just break immediately. And I'd be like, these are worthless.
No, MacGyver could disarm a nuclear warhead with one, though.
Yes, exactly. The media wanted you to believe you could do anything if you got your hands on
Nancy
one.
Drew opens a door with him. Everybody could use them for anything. Yeah. But he uses the pen, and it's an elaborate way he kind of sets up, because they handcuff him to the bars, and then he slowly unlocks himself, and then he hits the guy with the handcuffs, and he looks at him, gotcha. It's like,
and the best part is like they're giving, he's like, they requested a second meal, lamb chops, extra rare. It's like
slaughtering lambs.
So
he's like poetic.
Yeah.
He heard that story, and then that's again. He's like Dr.
He's
Lecter
improvising
is
out there.
So funny that he's like, "Oh, that story Clarice told was so funny."
That made him chuckle when he ordered it.
Story,
and literally
no
one's gonna understand that but him.
Like,
but it's just for his amusement. Yeah,
it's incredible. I loved it.
He ends this film by saying, "I'm having an old friend for dinner." Like, there is no moment that's not great with him.
Yep.
No, he's having a great time.
Yeah.
For a murdering cannibal, very charming.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just don't be rude, or he'll talk you into murdering yourself.
Right. If you want to know how he was caught, you can always watch the prequel. Red Dragon.
Oh, that's right.
Right. So go ahead.
The film wisely knows, like, this guy is like somehow going to be your favorite character, and somehow Chilton is like the villain of this film. So we will end this movie even after Clarice has wrapped up, and you as the audience have forgotten, because it's been 35 minutes since the last time we saw Hannibal Lecter. We'll have him call in and say, "Hey, that movie we were just in was pretty cool. Have a great one, Clarice." And you're like,
I'm gonna eat this
exactly.
Guy. Yeah.
Anyways, I'm ciao.
It's like, I'm not going to come after you, so maybe don't come after me. But in his mind, he's like, "But please come after me, just for the fun of it."
The world is more interesting with you in it, and of course, the touch with the dossier. You could apply the sexuality to it, I guess, and you could apply the loss of the father, that maybe there's the mentor relationship. Maybe that's the reason with Jack Crawford that Jodie Foster's character is looking for a father mentor there. Maybe, again, that's inappropriate sexuality. Maybe you could do the read of that one waitress she gets information from is kind of the one person Jodie has kind of a one-on-one conversation with, and then her black colleague, female colleague as well.
Right.
Maybe she's a lesbian. Who knows, right? You could put all that on there.
You could see it from that angle.
I don't put the romance of Dr. Lecter, though. I put
Not
the intrigue.
so much,
I don't put the romance.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily romance, more of him seeing a kindred spirit, or someone that he sees almost on an equal level. Like
It's
he
it's
sees
what you
himself
said
as
about
smarter
respect
than
and
everyone else.
rudeness.
He respects
Yeah.
her. Yeah.
Yeah, he
And,
respects her, and he doesn't respect very many people. So for
Yes.
someone like that, like it's, he
and
feels
she
a kinship
engages
to her.
with him, when he's talking about all this stuff, and she's like, "What are those drawings about?" And he's like, like no one's ever asked me about those.
The bellissimo.
Yeah, she's
course.
treating him as a person too, the way he's treating her as a person, even though he's a serial killer. So I think there's
Right.
mutual respect, and maybe the finger touch is just for the lulz for him. Like, I'll just do this thing. It'll be weird,
But also, I think he hasn't had any human contact for like
Yes.
10
That's
years.
true.
Like
Tilton says he probably hasn't even seen a woman in 8 years
Right.
when she first comes to him. So,
But I think it's the escape is awesome. But I wanted to bring up a theory that I read about, and this is that because Hannibal says, "Oh, I Buffalo Bill was one of my patients," and whatever, right? There's a theory that says he kind of helped create Buffalo Bill through like pushing him down that path as a
Right.
contingency to help him escape jail, knowing
Oh,
that he could
interesting.
leverage
Oh.
information to get me a cell with a window, get me lighter security, and I'll help you catch this guy. Meanwhile, that's why he knows his name and all this shit. It was all part of his
Interesting.
gambit to escape, and everything went according to his keikaku, to his plan,
Wow.
as it were. I think
That
it's
could be-
I
fascinating.
like that theory.
And
He's
it could be
smart.
also he was just he was bored when he was dealing with his patients, and he's like, this patient
What did
could
you-
potentially become a serial killer. Maybe I can just push him onto that path.
What do you
Right,
think
right.
of him as a psychiatrist, Jacob? He says about James Gumm's boyfriend, he
Mhm.
was so boring.
Hey,
Classic
boing.
manic depressive. His therapy was going nowhere. And it's like, this guy, he was so bored he started eating people. So like,
Yeah, he
do
needs
you
a
think he was
challenge.
good though? Do you think he could fix me?
I think so.
If
I think the show
if he felt like
knows
he
a
wanted
lot.
to.
Right,
Yeah.
with the Mads Mikkelsen show shows him as
Right.
a psychiatrist, like an acting psychiatrist in
Right.
the show.
Well, that's
Yes.
what he's doing with Jodie. Like, really, tell me about your
Yeah.
worst childhood memory. What's their baggage,
Right.
right? And then do you think solving this crime will get rid of your baggage? Is that what you're after? Like, he is psychoanalyzing her and doing all the things, so...
And he is a liaison to the police, of course. That's sort of his background as revealed
That's the
in
Red
the first
Dragon.
book, Manhunter and Red Dragon.
Yeah, of it all. And then you could argue he kind of created or helped the Tooth Fairy, which is the other serial killer.
The interesting relationship that they form as well, Jacob, with the pen pallingness, of course. It's interesting that he kind of always is tied to the villain, I guess. That Thomas Harris maybe leaned on that one too many times.
Yeah. And I think he kind of used that formula over from Red Dragon of he's locked up, but he's helping the FBI catch another serial killer. Like it's the same thing, but
Right.
I think he works better as a supporting character.
Right.
Once you get to Hannibal, he's kind of the main villain, being a sort of a monster on the loose, and then it's all about him. It's not as good. It's better when he's just a side character giving input and not like the main.
He's like an enigma
Killer that they're going after.
Yeah. And
people don't want to see the prequel movie, right? They didn't like Hannibal Rising, and that show had a fan base, but Brian Fuller programs typically seem to see this sort of like fervent outsider obsession, but never really a mainstream.
Yeah, it was a cult hit, I think. It had 3 seasons before it got canceled, and there's been talk of bringing it back over the last couple of years, but I don't think anything concrete is happening with that.
Now, Jacob, did you know? Now, obviously, it developed into something else. We got this Clarice show that deals with the fallout of this on Paramount Plus. I have no idea. I don't even want to talk about that thing. It got canceled like immediately. But did you know Brian Fuller's planned 4th season was Silence of the Lambs?
Right. Well, once you get to the 3rd season, that's when they start doing Red Dragon, and like you said, Richard Armitage is the Tooth Fairy in that and everything. So he did have plans to bring in more,
Tooth Fairy,
like
Buffalo
probably
Bill.
a new Clarice and these new characters and stuff. Lawrence Fishburne plays Jack Crawford in that too.
And supposedly the pick was Ellen Page, formerly Ellen.
Elliot Page. Yeah.
Nice. Interesting. I only got to like maybe I got to season 2, but I didn't get to the Tooth Fairy or anything. But some interesting premises, like somebody who's making violin strings out of human sinew. And they're like, okay, that's weird.
Right.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that show deals a lot with the relationship between Will Graham and Hannibal, and getting into the, like I mentioned before, Will Graham has like the serial killer mind where he can see things from their point of view.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's all about, yeah, we're just alike, you and I, right?
believe, but
Mhm.
officially he is on the spectrum in that program.
Mm.
And I think spoiler alert, but I believe it ends with them kissing. So, and like,
I know there's a lot of
mutual
shipping
suicide. So
in that fan
yeah,
base is all about
Interesting.
shipping. It's
that
yeah.
I'm not positive I will ever be watching that show, but I would put it to you, I guess, before we'll jump to our final thoughts, but
Mhm.
just sort of a overarching wrap up question here is, where do you think it would go again? Would they try to do this again? Will Anthony Hopkins get the Halloween Jodie, 2018 treat, Jamie
Mm.
Lee 2018 treatment? Will he get like Hannibal 2024? He's an old man.
The just desserts. That's what I would call it.
Yeah.
Hannibal, just desserts.
Yeah,
And we'll
that's
ignore
great,
all the
Mike.
sequels. And it's
Yes.
literally
Right.
he's just been on the run for
Just
50
Silence of the
years.
Lambs,
Yep.
yeah.
Clarice, you're still hanging
well, it's-
around?
I have that wig on from the end of the island.
Mhm.
I'm
They
so
wouldn't even,
handsome.
actually. They wouldn't even need to ignore like Hannibal. At the end of Hannibal, spoiler alert, he's still on the loose. So
Okay.
Oh, I thought,
it-
does he not die in that one?
no, he.
I think in the book he does.
Oh, well, that's
At
the other
one
thing is
point.
every movie except for even Hannibal Rising, they're all based on novels by Thomas Harris. So they never
novels.
made it a original movie about Hannibal that wasn't based on a book.
Right.
But he has stopped writing the character. I think it's sort
Mm.
of this Sherlock Holmes, obsession of like the character's bigger than me, and I think he has tried to kill him off a couple times to
Yeah,
whatever fan
but-
outcry or whatever.
I wouldn't put it past Hollywood to say, screw it, we'll do it anyway. And it would be something like that. A legacy
It'll
sequel.
never disappear.
Sure.
But it won't be a TV show again. Do you guys think they would just do another movie, or just they would reboot
Either a
Silence of the
reboot-
Lambs at some point?
Or just do Red Dragon for the 4th time in
Yeah.
media. I don't know. I
It's
don't
like,
know.
are they
I
going to
mean,
remake The Godfather? No, but we'll make a movie about making The Godfather,
Yeah,
Right.
Maybe about
making
making
of Silence of the
Lambs.
Lambs. That would break my heart.
Dino
Ah.
De Laurentiis. Yeah.
Yeah.
Doing so many drugs.
It doesn't need anything. That's the thing. It's so
Get
good.
Arnold on the phone.
Right. I have a couple fun facts that I could tell you before
Ooh,
we jump
please.
Okay, yeah.
So number one, so Barney, the orderly, right? Frankie Faison.
Mhm.
Frankie Faison, the best.
He's the only actor to appear in every movie except maybe Hannibal Rising, because I didn't watch that. But he's in Manhunter as a different character, and then he's in
Was that true?
this movie, Hannibal, and Red Dragon.
I
as
remember the
Barney.
first scene of Hannibal is him being interviewed, right?
Yeah,
Hmm.
he's in that. He's in Red Dragon, and he plays like a police officer in Manhunter, just
That's
randomly.
crazy. Frankie Faison's great.
Interesting. Okay.
And then the other
Bosch
thing
is
that
in
I
Bosch
thought,
right now.
right, he was in The Wire.
Mm.
The other thing I thought was interesting is that so Manhunter, shot by cinematographer Dante Spinetti, I think is his name. Also the same cinematographer who shot Red Dragon. So he shot the same story from two different directors. And the
I remember doing that.
That's a Texas Chainsaw. He did the reboot and the original. Same cinematographer. Yep.
but very different style, obviously. And the other thing is the screenwriter of Silence of the Lambs, Tom Telly, is that his name?
Academy Award
Did
winning.
not come back for Hannibal, but did come back and wrote the script for Red Dragon. So Red Dragon is written by the screenwriter of Silence of the Lambs and shot by the cinematographer of Manhunter. Hannibal, on the other hand, directed by Ridley Scott, a screenplay by David Mamet and Steve Zalian. So very strange that movie is not very good because it has a lot of talent behind it.
That's strange to you?
Well, I like Ridley Scott. I mean, he's got some misfires.
I think he has a lot.
I
Not a lot. I think it's more misses than hits, unfortunately, with Ridley.
Well, he's made so many movies at this point. Like I was looking at his filmography, I was like, damn. So he's allowed a few misses. Like he made Gladiator, Hannibal, and Black Hawk Down within a 2-year period. So I think this one was the one that was neglected.
The same month.
Yeah.
Right.
But if you're a completionist, I would recommend just watching those movies just once, just to, the sequels, Hannibal and Red Dragon, which is actually a prequel, and then definitely check out Manhunter because that movie, so good.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I definitely am curious for more of the Hannibal verse, I guess. I don't know if I'll be doing it immediately because we're running out of days on Spooktober. There's some other films I want to watch, but I will come back around. I will watch Manhunter. I do want to He's a fascinating character, and even if he's never better than he is in this movie, I still have a desire to go in for seconds, let's say.
Totally. And the weird thing about the sequels too is that so this came out in 91, right? They waited 10 years to make Hannibal in 2001, and then they made Red Dragon in 2002. And those were both produced by Dino De Laurentiis, who
Going right
was
at
like
it.
who was like, Silence of the Lambs was so good, we got to make some sequels to this baby.
Mhm.
And the last fun fact that I'll mention, Manhunter, Will Graham in that is played by William Peterson, who would go on to be in CSI, one of the most popular shows ever made. And CSI was essentially popularized by this idea of showing forensics on screen in
And
Manhunter
criminal
and Silence of the
profiling.
Lambs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
So it all wraps together, I guess.
All your true crime shows built on the...
And true crime wasn't really a thing as we know it now,
No.
right? Until the 2010s with podcasts and stuff like that. So
Well, I mean, 60 Minutes and
yeah,
those kind of shows. My mom's always been into those. Like,
I think there's been a
spouse
big
betrayed,
resurgence of
right?
that lately with just people using true crime and the controversialness of using real life victims stories and kind of for entertainment. That's a whole other
Well, that's why I prefer this to
thing.
something like the Netflix Dahmer or
Yeah.
any of the Ted Bundy one. It's like, just give me a fictitious account of something inspired. That way, nobody's really harmed.
Right. And the
you
whole
can
Dahmer
explore
thing.
it.
Yeah, it's very divisive because apparently it is a good show and a lot of people are enjoying it, but it's also like you're exploiting real people's tragedy for money and for entertainment.
Yeah.
And even I think Dahmer's relatives are like suing them because they don't want they want people to stop talking about him, like they want to separate their
Stop
lives
saying
from
our
this.
name.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Gotta be
personally,
traumatic.
I haven't watched it. That's not the type of thing I watch, is those biopics
I haven't
or
either,
whatever.
no.
So
I
not
don't
for
watch
me.
a lot of true crime stuff, and I don't
No.
watch a lot of thrillers. And what sets this one apart? I'll ask as we go into our final thoughts here on Silence of the Lambs. This is just, Mike, I'm not surprised you haven't seen it. It seems like the longer we're moving on, it's fading away a little. There was a while there for 10 years where you couldn't make a parody and not include a Silence of the Lambs parody. So it was so prevalent.
Mhm.
Right.
But now it seems to be fading away, and it's kind of becoming one of those films like Philadelphia or like other Oscar Beatty movies where people go like, well, no, I've seen the idea of it. Like, I've basically seen it. And you're like, no,
Mm-mm.
You haven't seen
watch it.
Yeah.
See it. It's
It's
not
better-
Citizen Kane. Yeah.
It's one of those movies where like it's famously good for a reason because is good and people should watch it because it's probably better
almost-
even than you expect it to be.
It's
a
so good that people
masterpiece.
take it for granted that they don't even need to watch it because they know it's good.
Right.
Like,
right.
it's
Yes.
weird like that. Yeah.
And the cultural osmosis, like you said, the parodies, even like the Goodbye Horses scene.
Mm-hmm.
I think I first came into contact with that through Jay and Silent Bob, right?
Sure.
Have you ever,
Yep.
Sure.
Yep.
Jay doing the reference to that, I think is where I first saw that scene. So
Wild.
Very popular for our generation. Seth Green has said on record 1,000,000 times that his Chris voice for Family Guy is based on Ted Levine. He's doing hey, Dad, how are
Yeah.
you? Dad, what's going on?
Kinda
Dad?
back of the
he
throat.
says,
Yep,
the,
yep.
the squeaky
Sure.
throw. I'm
Huh.
trying to bring up here. Here it is. So I've got the 1991 top 10 film list that I've published on Letterboxd, where I have Silence of the Lambs at the top, and that's again not surprising because it's the #1 film. I mean, it
won 5
Best
Oscars.
Picture that year.
Yeah.
Now it's released against Terminator 2.
mm,
That
Good
is a
movie.
great
Probably the
film,
best
a
sequel
seminal
ever made.
film. We've talked about it on here. It's also made by one of my favorite filmmakers of all time. And Jonathan Demme, I don't think anyone is ever going to list him as one of their favorite filmmakers. And that's heartbreaking
No.
to me.
well, I think he's not an auteur in the traditional sense. He's done so many genres. He's done so many different kinds of movies. He's hard to pigeonhole. I mainly know him from this, Stop
Yeah.
Making Sense, and more recently, Rachel Getting Married, which is
Now-
the only movie I can think of that he's made recently.
But that's the thing, Jacob, is you can't pin down because like Married to the Mob, Something Wild, those are all different. The music stuff. He's kind of the original hipster. He's kind of a guy where it's like, I like stuff because I want to be cool to like stuff that people don't like. And you're like, damn, Jonathan Demme, like, how did you like something nobody's heard of before? And it's like, well, because I seek it out. I'm like empathetic and I read and, I study. And you're like, wow, that's really cool. But that is a Jonathan Demme movie. This is as much a Jonathan Demme movie as Rachel getting married, because every character in this film feels real, feels alive, feels like they have a background story. When the people at the FBI training place say like, like Jack Crawford's in there, and then you see them talking, they feel like they have their own story going on, or they're chasing their own Buffalo Bill. Or at the end at the graduation, when they come up and she says Special Agent Starling and her friend, and she says like Special Agent Mo or whoever her friend is, that woman has like kids running by her. You get this whole story of like, Jesus Christ, like that's a
Right.
real fucking person. And Rachel Getting Married is, I think, a top 10 film ever made, in my opinion, because
Wow.
that is, in my opinion, just one of the realest films ever made. And that is
Yeah.
empathy. That is love. That is like caring, is what that movie is about. And that's just who Jonathan Demme is. And I don't want this to devolve into like, this isn't like a Legends Normies episode where we're just talking about him, because I outlined everybody who came together to make this particular movie special.
Yeah.
But it is his empathy to be like, shit, I got this job, but the person I'm talking to wants this more than anything. When you're like set up to like win first prize at like the science fair for something dumb you did, but like your friend did an experiment that they're like the most passionate about in like the world, and it's like really great and like important to them, and you're like, well, it's like, I'm not sure I should get the blue ribbon. Like, shouldn't Jodie get it?
Yeah.
Right.
And like he has the empathy to step to the side and be like, we're making something important here. It's not even the reaction to the gay stuff with Making Philadelphia. Like, he goes into this movie being like, we're also talking about really serious like source material. Like, I'm gonna like really like take an angle of like people and survivors of like crimes and vicious stuff, and like sort of like really try to tell a human story. And like you just feel like that's successful too.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I think
guys.
it was a really fortuitous like confluence of things coming together, where you have Hopkins and Foster coming together as the perfect
Should
actors
we
for those
give the
roles.
best performances we're ever gonna give? And Jonathan
Right.
Demme's like, it would be nice if you did.
And yeah, you have Jonathan Demme, the perfect director for the job, and then you have great source material, a great script. It's like, the lines in like Hannibal and Red Dragon, they're not as good as like the
No.
script is just so tight and so well
Yeah.
written that it's like uh it all just comes together so well to make a
One of the
perfect
best movies
movie.
ever made. It's like when we
Yeah.
did our Jaws episode. It's like, what do we say, Mike? It's like, it's
Right.
one of the best movies ever
Yeah,
made.
period.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, just again, how to shoot dialogue scenes that feel dynamic, and the performances, just the way he says "Thank you, Clarice," and that one tear falls when she tells her story. It's like, he felt something human, as much of a
Yeah.
monster as he is, right? To sell that, man, and it's just two people having a dialogue scene. I don't think a dialogue scene's ever been shot better than they've been shot in this, and the blocking, and he'll walk to a different part of his cell, and the camera will move. It's incredible. It's incredible, and a lesser film, you'll feel bored. But because everyone's so talented at the top of their game for this entire movie, everything's knocked out of the park. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
one of the best. One of the best.
Yeah. And again, if you want to see a lesser movie, just watch Hannibal, and you can see the drastic difference. Even though they got Hopkins back, they didn't get Jodie Foster.
Yeah.
Her and Jonathan Demme were at one point attached to come back and make that movie.
Right.
They both saw the script and were like, nah, I don't think so. Jonathan Demme didn't like it because it was too gory and too lurid. And they're just like, no thanks. So yeah, it was really just a perfect confluence to make a perfect movie.
Yeah, even the supporting, I can't remember the character's name, but who played the victim who gets kidnapped, senator's daughter. She's
Yeah.
incredibly heartbreaking
She
in
is
this too.
incredible.
When her and Jodie Foster, she's like, "Don't you fucking leave me down here! I got to get out of here." I'm
Let
like,
me out.
Where is he?
Yeah.
How the fuck would I know?
it's
Her
like
very
Jodie Foster's like,
honest
"Shut up!
response.
Just shut up for a
Shut up.
second."
Right.
Be quiet. Somebody's coming for you. Nobody's coming when she just like fires that back.
Man.
Like, get me out
Yeah.
of here.
Lady,
And then Mike, you
he's
brought it
still
up.
walking around out there.
Yep.
He's still walking around there. But leaving with the dog, that is, again, Jonathan Demme knows the human touch of, we had this whole story of her having the arc with Precious. She's going to be traumatized by this. Let's let this be real. She can't just walk out at the end and hug her mom and give like everybody a thumbs
They
up.
put a
and everybody
blanket
clap.
around her, right? Yep.
No, she fucking grabs that dog, looks horrified. Somebody tries to take it from her, and she's like, "No." You get this feeling of like that woman's gonna own Precious maybe for the rest of her life now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
what
not
she's
the
been
dog's
through.
fault, he didn't do anything, or she.
I think he broke his leg when he jumped, mister. It's licking at it. Just give me my dog. I don't care.
Even her threatening, like, I'll snap
kill
his
it.
neck. I'm like,
I'll kill your
what
dog.
other
I
option
don't
did she
give a
have?
shit.
Yeah.
Would she really do that,
Yes.
or was she just bluffing?
She
That's the
was
other thing.
bluffing. But
That's her
again,
only
Jacob,
trump
you
card. If
wake
the
up
dog's dead,
naked in a
she's-
hole.
yeah.
And imagine, do you know how angry I get when I skip lunch? Can you imagine if it's been days since I've eaten
Oh, yeah.
because somebody's trying to make me a skin suit? I will be losing my temper like
Well,
crazy.
again, and it's such a smart plan to like tie that bone on the string to try to lure the dog in. Like, I probably would not have thought of that. I'd just be like,
No.
well, I'm probably gonna die here, so whatever.
Yep.
I'm just gonna give up and sit in
And
this hole.
she sees the person who had clawed their fingernail into
And they
the
got
wall
the
with
camera
the blood, and
pulling
that's
up
when
from the
she
POV of the bucket.
screams.
Yep, with the little
Yeah.
lantern
Yeah.
on it. Incredible
Wow.
No,
shots.
I would
nice.
give up immediately. If I was ever kidnapped by a serial killer, I'd be like, well, guess my life's over. But
Yep.
I hope nobody ever puts a moth in my mouth.
Oh,
What's
man.
that?
But yeah, everybody knocked it out of the park. Every single thing about this is perfect. Like, basically.
What a movie.
Yeah. Thank you for recommending it,
movie.
Colin. Having not seen it, I recommend everybody who hasn't check it out because it's awesome.
Yeah, it's like when people are like, "Oh, you know what's an easy Halloween costume? I'll put on a jumpsuit and get a Michael Myers mask. Put on that jumpsuit and put on the mouth guard. Do a fucking slick back your hair. Like people
Right.
will still get it.
have
dude.
someone push you around in a dolly the whole time.
Oh, that's incredible. Yeah, and a little cop
Do
suit.
big eyes at a woman and ask her if you breastfed your daughter.
Man.
What? Did it make your nipples hard? What
Hannibal.
will it feel like when
Oh,
she's
boy.
gone?
Man. But he
He's
just
just,
cuts
like,
right to
fucking
the
with
core
that
of people.
senator.
He likes fucking
Yeah,
with
of
everybody.
course.
That's his
He
thing.
does. It's his favorite. He ordered the lamb, guys. The
Mhm.
greatest joke. We'll end it there. He ordered the lamb. Rare lamb chops, please.
Mm-hmm.
Has the screaming stopped, Clarice?
Has the screaming stopped? Well, the podcast is stopping here, Normies.
There we go.
That was our thoughts on The Silence of the Lambs. Like Jacob said, there's other Hector, Jesus Christ.
Hannibal
Hector Lecter. Good old Hector
Hector
Lecter.
Lecter.
It's his
Hannibal
cousin.
Lecter content. Check it out or whatever. I don't think we'll ever cover the rest of it on Normies Like Us, but we're gonna keep doing Spooktober episodes. We've got our back catalog here, but we're gonna end it right after Halloween with our annual Spooktober, where we'll
Big
talk
finale.
about like all the Halloween stuff we've been consuming, the spooky season, everything that's going on in spooky entertainment.
Mhm.
And we've all been doing the 31 days of Spooktober movies, right? So we'll all have our list of movies and whatnot. We can talk
We'll all
about
have
that.
Silence of the Lambs on there.
Yep. It's been a little bit overlap, but a lot that's different, and it's been fun going through that. So tune in next week for the last of the Spooktober episodes, a Halloween Spooktacular, as it were.
That's right.
And then we'll be back to our regularly scheduled program and getting back into Star Trek.
Well,
and all that.
we leave Spooktacular and we go into Thriller-vember. That's when we'll do the rest of
Yes.
movies.
And
Yeah.
Docu-Sember. We'll just do.
yeah.
All
there we go.
documentaries, all month.
Dude.
Yep.
No, I'm excited to get back to Star Trek.
Yeah. It's been a
yeah.
while, but
Yeah.
spooky season, always good, and having a lot of fun doing the 31. Thanks, Colin, again for that being your kind of thing that you've always done that we both adopted for this year, and it's a good time.
Hell yeah.
I'm loving it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, listeners, we're loving you. At Normies_like_us on all social media. Help us out by rating, reviewing, and subscribing to this podcast. Leave us a note that says, "Dear pen pal, writing to you in the Tattler." Is that what it is, Jacob, in
Yeah.
Red Dragon?
Exactly.
Leaving
Seymour
you a
Hoffman.
note in the Tattler here. Oh, is that who it is too? That's right.
And
it's
Because
Stephen Lang in
It's
Manhunter.
Stephen Lang in the original.
That's
yes,
right.
Yes, from
That's
Avatar
right.
fame.
Wow.
We'll see you soon. Yeah, leave us a note there and tell us who you've been eating, or leave us a personal ad or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, let us know what you've been enjoying for spooky season 2. And of course, check out our next episode, as we said, and watch us on YouTube, babies.
That's right.
Let's
All right.
appreciate it.
We've been your hosts. This is well, I got to stand up. I've got to tuck real quick and show my dance, but this is Buffalo Brooksy.
All right, Mike Reese Sterling, FBI agent.
Quid pro quo. This is Dr. Jacobo Lecter. Thanks, normies. I'll be eating you later.
What did Mig say?
Eating you later. All right. Bye, Normies.